Historic Landmarks Commission, April 13th, 2022. All right, so let's start with we'll start with the roll call, I guess.
Thank you. So today we have Chair Grumbine,
Present?
Vice Chair House,
Here.
Commissioner Butler,
Here.
Commissioner Dorden is absent, Commissioner Drury is absent, Commissioner Lenvik,
Here.
Commissioner Manuel,
Here.
and Commissioner Uli is absent, and we have a quorum. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so let's move on to item A, public comment. Now that we're back in person, there is speaker slips for anyone who wants to comment on any items, not just public comment, but anyone who wants to make a comment, and just we ask that you fill out the speaker slip with your information and hand it in to the secretary, and then you'll have 2 minutes at the podium there. So for now, let's start with a public comment portion. So any member of the public may address the commission for up to 2 minutes on any subject within our jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda for public discussion. So is there anyone here for general public comment? Not on the particular item? All right. In that case, let's close public comment. We just saved like a whole 2 minutes from Zoom meetings. This is great. All right. We're on to item B, approval of the minutes of Historic Landmarks Commission meeting of March 30th, 2022. Do I have a motion to approve minutes?
I'll move approval.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Lenvik. Anyone second it?
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Butler. Under discussion, any edits? And we'll wait for the screen to go through them go to them for any edits, because I have it on my digital laptop, but I didn't have any. Anyone else? Okay. In that case, we have a motion and a second. Let's have a vote. And I guess we don't have to do the whole roll call vote now, or do we need to do that because we used to not do it.
Usually do.
Okay. Oh, we were just, it was the old ways.
There goes your 2 minutes.
Okay, all right. So let's have a roll call vote.
Thank you. So we have Chair Grumbine.
Oh, but on items, don't I usually go last?
Yes. So I'll go ahead and start with Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lenvik,
Yes.
Commissioner Emanuel,
Abstain.
Vice Chair House,
I was absent, so I abstain.
and Chair Grumbine.
Yes.
All right, so the motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so we are on to item C, approval of the consent calendar. Approval of the consent calendar for April 13th, 2022. To staff.
I must say, it was an epic consent.
I heard it was.
5 minutes from roll call to adjournment.
Yeah. All right, anything from staff on the?
Yes, we had one item, and it's not, I don't have the address in front of me. Do you have the address for that?
Yes, is 700 State Street.
Thank you. And it was a review after final, which was approved. The reviewers were House and Manual.
All right, thank you.
Some changes to windows because of unanticipated structural issues.
Oh, gotcha. All right. In that case, so we have, do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Motion.
Yep. Commissioner
I'll
Manuel?
second it.
All right. Vice Chair House, second. Under discussion, any discussion about the consent calendar? All right. Roll call vote.
All right, thank you. I'll start with Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lenvik,
Yes.
Commissioner Manuel,
Yes.
Vice Chair House,
Yes.
and Chair Grumbine.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
All right, great. All right, so we're on to item D, announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals. Any announcements?
I will not be at the next consent or full commission meeting.
Okay.
Gary.
All right, thank you.
What was that?
That might have been
An angry laptop.
Mike? I don't know what.
I think it was the laptop. Sorry about that.
All right.
I do have a couple announcements,
Yes,
Chair
please.
Grumbine. The semi-annual recruitment for City Advisory Group members is in progress. The deadline for any resignations would be Thursday, April 21st. And the deadline for applications would be Monday, May 9th at 5 p.m. And then also I'd like to announce that item 3 of today's agenda, 931 Anacapa Street, will be postponed indefinitely at the applicant's request.
Okay.
Repeat that.
Item 3 is postponed indefinitely at the applicant's request, 931 Anacapa Street.
They were jumping at the bit, weren't they, last 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, they have reduced the scope of work significantly, so it's going to go through another round of completeness
I noticed that they
review.
don't have all the information that they originally had
Yeah,
on
so
their
we'll-
current drawings.
We'll reassess the design review level that's appropriate now, and we'll bring it back as
Okay.
appropriate.
Thank you. Okay, so then, and I guess we'll probably just be ended up with a break there because not being able to start before the next one. Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would ask, has the applicant for item 4 been notified they could come in early?
I have not notified them. We can only start 15 minutes before the agendized
true.
time, so.
So we'll have time to run and grab a coffee, which isn't in this.
There you
It'll
go.
be a perfect coffee break.
Call the coffee
All
truck.
right. Okay, so we are on to, announcements. Any other announcements or future agenda items, appeals, anything else? All right. Okay. Oh,
Actually,
Commissioner
Mr.
Early.
Chair, if I could
Yeah.
make one quick announcement, just a reminder to the commission that April 22nd is the joint it's
Oh, yeah,
a joint
good.
meeting. It's a special HLC meeting with the De La Guerra Plaza Advisory Task Force or Task Committee, I should say. Just a
Yeah, and
heads
it's
up,
like
that's a
8:30 in
Friday
the morning or
meeting.
something on Friday.
Yeah, we'll
so
be sending
not a
out
normal.
more information. You'll get a reminder email with the agenda, but just.
Well,
for-
there's going to be really delicious croissants there,
I
right?
hope
And
so.
coffee.
I hope so.
I have a question of staff regarding that. Are they going to be presenting a design to us, or are they going to be there to talk about philosophy, do you know?
We're still working out the agenda details, and it might be a little bit of both.
Okay.
Might even be some musical playing and
Well,
some bands.
I would hope they don't drop a new plan on us and, you know,
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean. Okay, any other announcements, et cetera? All right, item E then, subcommittee reports from all of our listed subcommittees. Any subcommittee reports?
I will mention the State Street Advisory Committee. It is moving very slowly, and we're simply being informed by various departments of their of the issues that they face, for instance, maintenance and so on and so forth. So there's been nothing of any significance happening. Our next meeting is, I believe, on the 18th, and we will have a presentation at that time by staff on the results of the proposals, RFPs. We have not seen the staff report yet. We have no idea what's coming. So
Okay.
that's the
Great.
schedule, at least.
Thank you for
Mm-hmm.
keeping us up to date. Was there anything on the Plaza de la Guerra?
I don't
Since
think
last time.
anything I need to bring up, considering we'll be having a
Yeah,
joint meeting.
okay. Any other committee subcommittee meetings? Nope, we're all good, okay. All right, close item E, and how's our time? Are we good for, starting this item?
Right on time.
All right, right on time, perfect. All right, so let's start with item 1, or not start, but continue with item 1, general plan housing element update. All right. So this is a brief presentation on the general plan amendment to update the housing element of the city's general plan in accordance with state housing element law. All right.
Hello, Jessica.
Hi. Good afternoon, Commissioners and Chair Garambine. My name is Jessica Metzger. There's a few new faces here I don't know. And we are here, sorry, I didn't turn that on. We are here before you today to give you a brief outline of our housing element update and encourage you all to participate in the upcoming steps for that update. You should have received an email back in early March to sign up for our housing update interested parties list. If you didn't get that, let me know and I can add you to the list at the end of this meeting. And so you are our inaugural body to view our new video that City TV just finished for us on Monday.
You
So
have popcorn to go with that?
Yeah.
there's a new food policy. There's no food.
Forgot.
So, Ms. Kokinda is going to help me play it. We just have to turn on the sound. And hopefully it all works. Here we go.
California law requires all cities and counties to have a plan for how they will meet the housing needs of everyone in the community. When population forecasts are updated, cities like Santa Barbara need to update their plans based on a specific number and types of housing they need to meet future needs. But what if we don't want to build more housing in Santa Barbara? That's normal. But there are actually a lot of reasons why it's important to meet our community's housing needs. Because of the high cost of housing, it can be challenging for cities across California to provide enough affordable housing for working families, seniors, and young professionals. And our children who grow up here can have a hard time staying in Santa Barbara due to housing affordability. Lack of affordable housing can lead to increased homelessness, overcrowding, and the costs associated with managing its effects on the community. Besides, having enough housing for everybody helps fulfill Santa Barbara's community vision to allow as much housing as possible within resource limits to provide an array of options for all residents. And if we don't get a new housing plan approved, the city could be fined, lose state funding opportunities, lose the ability to issue permits, and in the end, not have a say in where new housing should go. So how many new homes are needed? Based on the state's forecast and the local formula, Santa Barbara needs 8,001 new housing units. Of those, almost half need to be affordable to low and very low income households. The updated housing plan must show the exact locations where future housing can be built and how many homes can be built at each location. So how do we decide where new housing should go and what are considered good places for new homes? Vacant lots not set aside as open space, sites that are underutilized and need rehabilitation, locations where housing could become more dense than it is today, locations near public transit and essential services like healthcare facilities and neighborhood retail centers, areas where housing could be added to commercial buildings or in business parks, creating live-work neighborhoods. And some cities encourage homeowners to build granny flats on their properties. These are called accessory dwelling units. Before we decide what goes where, we need your help. What criteria are most important to you when thinking about where new housing should be located? The decisions we make over the coming months will shape our community for years to come. Let's work together to make sure Santa Barbara's updated housing plan really is the very best one for our city and our future. For more information, visit www.santabarbaraca.gov/HEU.
Whose hand was that?
It was not my hand. So that is our educational video that we've put together to take out to the community. So we're presenting it not only to the boards and commissions of the city, but also to the Chamber of Commerce, nonprofits in our community, of course, housing advocates, and also bringing in the environmental community as well. And so what we're hoping from you today is just to get this on your radar as something that's happening. Our timeline for the housing element is rather rapid, and we should have a draft for review in June of this year. So if you sign up for that interested parties list, you'll get an email of when the draft is available for public review and comment. We will also be talking about the housing element and the goals for the housing element at a special meeting jointly between the Planning Commission and City Council, and that will be April 28th. So I really encourage you to look at that. The staff report will be out the Thursday before that, so that will have the goals in it. And it's important to make sure that we start out with strong goals because the policies and implementations will come from those. So please be on the lookout for that as well. And then I can answer any general questions that you have also. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Metzger. All right, so if that concludes your presentation, let's open public comment. Does anyone want to be the first public in a couple of years to comment to HLC in person? This is your chance. You can be the first one. Any member of the public wishing to comment on this item, please come forward and do so, and you'll need to fill out a speaker slip, but I'm not seeing anyone get up, so, all right, the first person award is still out there. All right, so we'll close public comment, back to the commission for questions. Any questions or comments? Actually, let's just kind of open it to questions and comments. Commissioner Rulli?
Yes. 2 months for a draft, serious? Are you serious?
Commissioner Uli, we are very serious about that.
That will be amazing.
We have all of our staff in long-range planning working feverishly on this, as well as hiring 3 interns to help with the process. A lot of the housing element is just gathering data that we already have. So we're lucky to have a grant that allows us to hire some interns to help with that data gathering endeavor.
Awesome.
Great. All right, any other questions or comments? Some of those structures were not HLC approvable, but some of them were. All right, well, thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.
All right, so we are on to item 2, and we're still within time we can if the applicant is here and would like to start a little early. So this is for concept review for 400 West Carrillo Street. This project site is located within the EPV district. The project consists of a demolition of the existing parking lot and removal of 15 mature on-site Tipuana tipu trees and construction of 3- and 4-story residential structure with 63 rental units. Parking for the residents would be provided in a combination of surface lot and garage parking. The apartments are proposed as 100% rent-controlled moderate, 80 to 120% AMI, and middle, 120% to 160% AMI, income affordable apartments operated by the Housing Authority of the City of Santa Barbara. Modifications are requested for the proposed density and exceeding the 45-foot height limit. This is a one-time concept review. No final appealable action will be taken at this meeting.
Chair
So,
Grumbine,
welcome. Oh, yes.
I need to recuse myself for conflict of interest with the owner and the applicant.
All right. Sounds, well, thank you for letting us know. All right. So with that, welcome. If you would introduce yourselves for the record and.
Yes, thank you, Chair Grunbein. My name is Rob Fredericks. I'm the Executive Director of the Housing Authority of the City of Santa Barbara. And it's good to be with you today. We have our project architect, Christine Perrone, here with the Cornell Collective. And we have my teammates, Skip Szymanski, our Chief Operating Officer and Deputy Director, and Dale Azam, our Director of Property Development and Administration. And I just want to take a brief moment to say why are we doing this development, just to add some context at this property that's city-owned. It was nice that Jessica gave a brief update on the housing element, so you know the housing needs. And there's, even though there's a great need for all housing types and income types to income households, there is a real gap in providing that for the missing middle, those that don't qualify for the programs that we typically provide for low-income households, but they also can't afford market rents. In fact, out of the 820 units under the current regional housing needs allocation, only 4 moderate income units have been produced in the current planning period. And the city really wants to see more development for income restricted at the moderate to middle income. So we've partnered with the city under a project agreement to redevelop this really sort of a underutilized city parking lot to create that housing. And of course, we're proud of the developments that we've historically done throughout the city, and we want to do it right. So we want to, of course, have HLC's comments and take those and make it a terrific development. So I'll leave it at that. Did I miss anything, Mr. Smith? Okay.
All right, so I forgot to mention this as well, but your 15-minute timer has started, and if you need a little more extra time, I'm sure we can let you have it. So.
I appreciate that, thank
Yeah.
you.
Mhm.
So Chair Grumbine and
Oh, is that mic on?
the green light's on.
Okay, good. Okay.
So, thank you. So I think I'm going to try to be quick, and if you're all familiar with the Creo commuter lot, I'll skip the photos. Is that a safe bet? Okay, I'm going to skip the photos, but I will zoom in here. I'll try to.
I can see it. Thanks.
Just to give you a sense of it for its location. So obviously, we all know the Tippewanas on site, and there's the, can you see? Oh, good, you can see that. The gas station on the corner, there's a 2-story apartment building, and then as we go north, of course, we transition into single-family residential. And I think it's important to be aware of that. Let's see. I need an extra 2-3 minutes just to navigate. We have a
canceled
item, so it's not going to be a problem. So this is a 63-unit, 3- and 4-story apartment complex. And
If on there, here, can you orient us where all the pieces are?
yeah,
the
let me go
freeway and-
to the, skip that. So the site plan. So here's Carrillo Street, Castillo Street. Here's Mission Creek, and there's the freeway on-ramp, of course, just adjacent to that. A gas station, 2-story apartment building, and then here you start into that single. This is multifamily, but it's 1-story. And so one thing I want to first talk about is our constraints that we have on the site and our opportunities. Because we're adjacent to Mission Creek, we do have a 25-foot, and we're actually honoring a more than 25-foot setback along that boundary. And then with that, we did want to have really make a great effort to preserve a lot of those Tippewanas, and that's important for how this building can be perceived. You'll see that in the animation. We'll keep those mature Tippewanas, and Courtney is here with us as well as our landscape architect. She'll address some of the landscaping. We also held the building back. You can see here on the northern boundary. This is all surface parking, and we purposely did that to really be respectful of our single-family neighborhood to our north. So our building is starting over 50 feet away from those neighbors, that neighborhood. The access aisle will remain in the same location. And what you're seeing here is surface parking around the perimeter. And then if I zoom in, the perimeter of the building is 1 and 2 car garages with garage doors that create a real base for this project. How do I get back to?
Control 0 will get you.
Back there. Okay, great. So that, and the other constraint that we really needed to honor was because of the adjacency to Highway 101. For health reasons, of course, we're trying to keep the building as far away from the freeway on-ramp as possible. So in the end, the site plan kept that surface parking lot configuration that you see there now on site. Largely is kept. And you'll see here, there's 9 parking spaces and then 5. And that is an exception request that we will be making to you because we're preserving one of the Tippewanas at that island. And that was the rationale for that. Second story kind of stacks. Actually, let me go back and briefly talk about people living so close to, definitely at the Carrillo Street. Oops. So you can see here how far back we've held the habitable part of these apartments with a deep patio and a planter in the foreground. And we've also done it here at this edge. And what you'll see in the elevations as well, because of the grade change along Castillo, these apartments are about 3 feet above the adjacent grade, making these pretty much a really livable units, even for a well-traveled street like Carrillo. Oh, wrong one. Control 0. Getting the hang of it. And so the third story also stacks, but I will point out an important feature. Let's see. Here at the corner is a deep community deck that is roofed. And I think it is really important to give people that outdoor space. We know from a nearby adjacent project how popular these kinds of outdoor spaces are, even on a very active street like Carrillo. But we roofed it just to create that sense of kind of protection as well. So I just wanted to point that out. That corner has a very strong deck element. And then the fourth floor, you can see we've located it internal to the site, and except for this one element that's kind of creating a tower element. You know what, I'm going to go to the animation and then come back to these. What are my options here? I could do that again. Is it?
Say it for you.
Oh, can you please? Thank you.
Open it up.
And what was important in the animation in particular is, especially that the elevation that you see, here we go, we're starting up at the northern end of Castillo. And so here's that main entry drive that you can see. What we are proposing, and Courtney can speak to this, is putting in more jacarandas. That's the street tree along this street frontage. And even there, you can see some of the detailing, some roof tile kind of guardrails, again, to create that layering of detail, but also experience for people living on the ground level. And here's that corner entry with that deep deck above. And I know these windows and doors are missing their buttons. I don't know why this didn't show up, but we certainly will. They'll be there. And so here we are at the corner at Carrillo and Castillo. And here you see the kind of the living spaces there are set back significantly. That's about a 7-foot deep, maybe 8-foot deep patios, and then it's layered back again with landscaping. And I think this is what, there's that fourth floor that you see facing the highway, and those are very much in bloom, Tipuanas. But you can see those are accurately placed and, accurately sized, and that gives you a sense of how much that canopy does to screen that denser part of the project. So I think I'm going to make sure Courtney has time. Would it be helpful for me to go through these elevations quickly?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. We only care about architecture. Our landscape architect's gone, so we're...
Okay, so here we are. We're starting at the corner of Carrillo and Castillo, and here's that kind of main entry element. We are doing one request to exceed the 45-foot height limit. Everything else stays within it. But you create kind of, I wanted this kind of cascade of, an element that came up and then back down. So I did add one unit here on the 4th floor, and then it needed to kind of go up a little bit above the 48-foot height limit. So that is one request. And here you can see,
Sorry, did you mean the 45-foot?
it exceeds the 45-foot, and this is outside of the CBD, so it is 45, not 48.
Okay, because I thought you just said it exceeded the 48-foot.
No, it does not.
Okay,
It's about 47 and a half.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And here you can see kind of some of that detailing that we're starting to introduce. That's,
I wonder what the background music was. I thought it was the video player was just like had something on. Yeah.
and we are introducing, we want to do some sandstone clad, actually sandstone landscaping walls for texture and layering at the ground level. So here we are going down that little one-story element, and you can see back behind, kind of faded back, is that fourth floor. And that's about 50 feet from the north boundary line and 50 feet interior to the site from this boundary. So Control 0. And, oops, no. Let's see. And here we are at the corner. Yeah, you can read that pretty well. Here's that, again, that deck element, kind of a balcony that's also puncturing that piece of architecture, cladding this in a sandstone landscaping wall. Again, those are those patios that are set back. And again, we wanted to do this as a very traditional building with wrought iron and awnings and two-piece mission tile. Some of the kind of column detailing you can kind of see here. And then here's our taller piece. So here we are at Carrillo. So that's the three-story element, and here you can see these garage doors. There's one cars and two cars to kind of create some kind of different variation, but also just what was functional. So we do have a strong fourth-story element here with lots of ins and outs and shadow lines that I think are working quite successfully. And I think the fact that I didn't put in the trees masked in here, but again, you can't really see this elevation, and it's deeply internal to the site. And then finally, here's our north elevation, and again, it's got the one-story, a three-story presence, and then the four-story really starts deeper into the site. And again, the very, very Santa Barbara traditional materials and massing. And so those are the elevations. Courtney, did you want to jump up? Yeah. I mean, it's already way on the- I know.
Okay. Thank you. It's nice to be here in person again. So I'm Courtney Miller, Courtney Jane Miller with CJMLA, and I'm going to try and find my sheets here. Oops, there we are. Can you do full screen? Guess not. Okay.
F11.
Thank you. You're good. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I know this on my computer, but not on this one.
F11 didn't work.
No.
Just hit the Z key, you can zoom.
Okay, that's different. Okay, got it. So I think you're oriented to the site. This is our tree disposition plan. As Christine mentioned, we're proposing the removal of, I think, 22 trees. Not all Tipuanas, some are king palms. And the majority of those trees are within the center of the site. So anything with an X would be a removal here. It's a considerable amount of canopy coverage, but we're working with Bill Spiewak, who's our arborist, to inventory those and decide, even the ones that we're proposing to keep, what kind of shape those are in and whether they're healthy. Tipuanas are extremely aggressive and problematic trees, especially in parking lots. So I think over time, maybe something we want to continue to address removals of, but we're still kind of working through that. So today, our proposal remains with the 22 removals. And then in terms of the landscape plan, is What was the Zoom again? Just Z. Oh, okay. I'm hitting control. I'll zoom in here. So Christine covered the basics. I think we have the Mission Creek, which is channelized just to the south here. We have our creek setback. Everything here, these are all callistemon trees, which we'll be protecting in place. And they form kind of a lower, very dense layered canopy, which is exactly what we want to deal with the environmental policies. And in fact, we're going to try to layer in as much other vegetative plant material as we can in order to address the air pollutant removal. The two kind of main elements that we're proposing as part of this design are the community courtyard here in the middle. And we have a little pet park proposed here. Remains to be seen if that will be allowable within the creek setback, but we're working with staff on that. And within the middle of the property, what we wanted to do here was create, you know, like it's called a community space, a mix of active and passive uses. So in the center, we have what we're kind of calling the living room, maybe a wood deck with just different seating areas, and we'll have a mix of in-grade and raised planters throughout this area. And then on either side, we have smaller kind of seating nooks, so different sized areas suitable for different types of furnishings. The idea is that everything, well, not everything, but portions of these elements would be movable so that they're, you know, you can shift things around however you need. And then we have some proposed somewhat active uses here, you know, maybe ping pong or cornhole, things like that. And then for the planting around the perimeter, I think, oops, that was too far. As Christine mentioned, we're protecting in place the existing street trees along Castillo. So anything that's a black and white symbol would be an existing tree. And then we're proposing 2 new jacarandas to fill that kind of hole there. Along Carrillo Street, we're proposing sidewalk improvements. Right now, it's an existing curb-adjacent sidewalk. Very busy street, so this will be much safer in keeping with the pedestrian master plan. It'll be an 8-foot wide sidewalk and a 4-foot wide parkway. We will be keeping the existing palms that are within tree wells currently and giving them some more room to grow and some friends with new palms there. And otherwise, I think that's it. So,
All right.
welcome questions and feedback. So,
Great, thank you. All right, so if that concludes the presentation, then we'll open public comment on this item. Any member of the public wishing to comment on this item, please step forward. You'll need to fill out, if you haven't already, you'll need to fill out a public comment card, but I'm not seeing anyone stand up. So, all right, we'll close public comment and back to the commission for questions. Are there any questions about this?
Mr. Chair,
Vice Chair House.
that courtyard, what is the distance from building to building wall?
do you happen to know that?
Yeah, it's clear.
Oh, you might need to turn that on. It looks green, but
Oh,
it's
no,
not fully
okay.
green. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So internal there from the balcony, not from the walls, but from the balcony, right there, it's 7 feet to the wall. And then the courtyard itself is over 20, I think it's 21 feet. And then it's 7 feet again to that right there. So that's all open walkway. So all told, it's about 34 feet wall to wall.
Thank you.
All right. I'll piggyback on that question. What level is that courtyard on?
That's on the ground level.
Okay. So there are 4 stories on one side, and there's 3 stories on the other, is that right?
That's right, yeah, 3
Okay.
stories facing Castillo Street,
Castillo
and then the 4th story is facing internal to the parking lot.
Okay,
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Vice
Have you
Chair
done
House.
any shadow studies to know how many hours of daylight or sunshine there might be in there?
We haven't yet. It will be impacted, and I think Courtney's team has been looking at shade-friendly planting.
Yeah, we're aware that it will be pretty shady in there, so we're working with that.
All right.
Mr.
Other
Chairman?
questions? Yes, Commissioner Barr.
Two questions. I thought I saw, but please correct me, was there plans for charging stations, like for electrical
That's
cars?
correct.
I thought I saw.
Yeah.
I saw one. Were there more than one, or
There's
have you
more-
designated?
They are designated, and they're on the plan there. Courtney, you can, if you, yeah. There's, on the lower middle, actually scooch over.
Okay.
Yeah, you can see them spread out. It's with, when you see that
There's
EVCS,
two near there.
yeah,
Okay,
they're
at
spread
least
throughout,
three.
yeah.
My other question had to do with noise abatement. Now, it looks like you plan to put a lot of plant life, trees, shrubs, etc., which is great. Any other plans? So, I hate to say the word, but wall or something?
I don't think a wall will be necessary. What we typically do in these kinds of scenarios is it will be addressed with the building itself. Because of their proximity to the freeway, there's also environmental concerns for the particulate, so they will already have probably additional mechanical unit systems that address quality of life, and then the building walls will probably have a higher SDC rating as well, the windows, to make sure that people can live there.
Other questions? Other commissioners? All right, in that case, let's go into comments. Who wants to kick us off?
I will if you want.
All right.
I find this building to be excessively large and out of character for the neighborhood. You really got to go and sit on Castillo Street to realize that you're in a predominantly one-story neighborhood, and this is being dropped on the corner, which is probably, I guess, as good as you can get. But you go up and down Castillo Street, and it's a huge building amongst all those one- and two-story buildings. And I look at the housing project that's kitty corner across Carrillo Street, and I believe that's a housing project as well. And I believe it's two-story, at least on the street it's two-story. And it fits in. The architecture fits in, the scale of the building fits in, and I must say this building does not fit in. And I'm not sure how it can be made to fit in. I look at the apartment house that's across the street from the library on Anapamu. I don't know who did that, but it is one of the more beautiful buildings in the downtown area. If you recall, it's way back from the street. It backs up to the parking garage. A tremendous amount of space in front, a sculpture garden in front. And I look at that and say, and I've commented on that before to some of the bookstore in the neighborhood, whatever, people who live and work there, what a wonderful space that is, what a wonderful building that is. And then I look at this and I say, we're driving into Santa Barbara or exiting Santa Barbara, and we're seeing this mammoth thing sitting there. And that bothers me. It bothers me a lot. I think maybe more setbacks would work. I certainly don't know why you have that interior courtyard for 3 stories. I mean, nobody lives off it. It's simply a hallway to get into your unit. But with a couple of exceptions, there are no windows out onto there. There are just doors into your unit. And that space, I believe, could more positively be used on the exterior of the building by way of creating setbacks, greater setbacks. But you look at there, and the image of that thing as a place where people are going to go and congregate and recreate and so on and so forth. It's not. You're not even going to have your kids out there because there's no observing them from the units. And you go up on the second, third, and fourth floor, second and third in particular, and it's just a big hallway you're looking down to the ground from. And to me, that seemed like a waste of space when you really could use that space on the perimeter of the building. So, you know, I'm not enamored by the architecture. I don't think it's up to the standards of the one you have kitty corner across the street. But I think this is not compatible with the neighborhood. I think you could have maybe a three-story building that could be compatible. A building with more setbacks might be compatible. But you're in a neighborhood that's made up of 1- and 2-story buildings, and this is not compatible.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Lenvick.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So a question, first of all, the project Commissioner Lenvick's referring to, Catter Corner across the street, that's Las Fuentes, is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. And then next to that is your office's project El Carrillo,
El
is that
Carrillo,
right?
that's
Okay, and how many stories is that?
El Carrillo is 2 and 3 stories. It was a
Okay.
big deal when it got built, too, for being too big and too aggressive.
And I'm very fond of that building. I largely agree with Commissioner Lenvick's comments. However, I'm very supportive of this project, and I think that if there's a site for such a building to go, this is probably it. But anything that can be done to relieve the mass bulk and scale would certainly be appreciated. And, you know, I just really have concerns about the livability of that interior courtyard. So I think you should really consider how you could improve the livability and also benefit the community more. You know, I understand the architecture needs to be simple, and El Carrillo is very simple, and I really like that building because it just feels like a 30s apartment building. It's simple and elegant. So, you know, if this meets that same kind of standard, I'd be happy with it. I think that's really all I have to add.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Uli.
I agree with both those commissioners.
All right.
Mr. Chair. In context, yes, I support the comments that preceded, but I also recognize the urgency that the city faces in gaining affordable housing for local residents. It's a serious, serious problem. And I can speak from both personal and other anecdotal experience that we suffer for not having really adequate, affordable, livable housing in the city of Santa Barbara. I think the location has a benefit in that this is a big project. Physically, it's large, but it is at one end. It's not downtown. It's accessible to downtown, but it sits in a location, A, that's largely unused today, significantly, and B, would be offset. If there's an opportunity to bring the height down, possibly to the 3 stories, that might help some other way. But in general, I think the concept is a strong one.
All right. And actually, could we go to your elevations page? And actually, I guess the way to point to things, if we want to point to things, is actually we can take the mouse now. So, as opposed to in Zoom where we're just marking up and having to have someone else. So, yeah, this is as close as we get to paper these days now. I would say that there's some of my general comments. While I agree with what most of the commissioners have said in terms of the size and where it's placed, I would differentiate strongly between Carrillo and Carrillo and Castillo. So Castillo is definitely the minor street, and it needs to be able to modulate from the higher, more dense major street to the minor street. And so I think it needs to step down in some way and react in some way also with setbacks that are more Castillo-ish in terms of the way that the buildings, and because they're single family and some of them are 1 story and 1 and 2 story, there's a character there, that street character, that at least once you get past the very strong corner, I think that wants to start to sort of meld into that and start to respect that. So that might give sort of, from my point of view, some initial thoughts on ways of addressing the fact that it's on these two streets, and that they have very different characters. Now, speaking of which, the different elevations, I think this upper elevation is the most successful compared to especially the back elevation, where even though I know you don't see it, as long as the trees live, then no one sees it except for when they drive up. But at the same time, I think it definitely can still be massaged and get refined so that it's not such simple blocks and horizontal monotony or consistency. So I think the front has a much more successful, very charming. And if you look at the drawings around us now, yes, this is State Street around us, so it's the more major streets, but that character, that more Santa Barbara character, is more successful on the let's see, and the graphics aren't good here. East, what's being called the east elevation. So, now I've zoomed in, and I don't know if I can zoom out.
Oh, too far.
Gotcha. Oh yeah, so you gotta do dual control here now. Okay, so we gotta work together. This is like one of those games that you have to both pick the same thing, otherwise nothing works. Okay, so yeah, I think we can stay on plan, it's fine. So I think that a part of the challenge is trying to get, in my mind, and looking at here, this indication of a setback about there, it looks like you're kind of respecting that, but I think it maybe needs to be respected more as a transition piece. I find the corner is, in general, acceptable as a strong corner. I also agree with the comments about the internal courtyard. I don't know what you're getting out of it, and for a tall internal courtyard, it's going to be fairly dark. I don't know if it's really benefiting either the people much, and no matter how many ping pong tables and other things you put out there, if it's not a great place, I don't know how much you're actually going to get out of it, even the residents are going to get out of it. So that seems like an opportunity, or at least a piece of it seems like an opportunity to steal from, to actually give more to the street, especially the upper Castillo portion, to try to get that to modulate. I think those are my main things. I would say that personally, I find 3 stories along the corner fine. I find it as it goes towards the single-family neighborhood, maybe it's at that point that it really wants to step down or step down to 1 story and 2 and 3 or in some configuration. And you might need that internal courtyard space to make it all work. But elevation-wise, I find the Castillo one is charming, especially the Castillo and the Cabrillo even as well. So I think design direction, I think you want to lean more towards that in terms of your overall composition and breakups. Any thoughts on those comments, my comments, because I kind of threw them off at the end, and I don't want it to be, this is one-time concept review, and we want to try to summarize our feedback, but I don't want it to be just my feedback adding in if others don't agree with it.
I would agree.
And Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Could I request feedback on the Park Island exception that we're requesting and the height that we're requesting over the 45-foot?
Okay, yeah, so thoughts on that, maybe just as a discussion first? Let's go
Chair.
with the Park Island first. Yeah.
What's the Park Island?
It's
Over 8 spaces without
Finger
a...
planter.
I have
Yeah.
no problem with that. I was going to ask, do you need to go to Planning Commission, and do you need to get a community benefit exception to go to 48 feet, or what's involved?
We would need to get a community benefit. Well, the logistics of how we do this, we're still working out with staff, and how we do the density here, so that's still in play, whether it may be Planning Commission, it may not.
So if not Planning Commission, who makes the community benefit decision?
We may not need to do a community benefit to get the height and the density. It depends on how we work this out with staff.
Okay, all right. So that's yet to be
Yes.
resolved.
TBD?
Yeah.
All right, so anyone not okay with the planter?
I think the planter removal is fine. I think they have the opportunity to get the required peninsula planter in with out and not save that tree. I mean, I think the Tipuanas are bad trees to begin with there, and they should look for some other tree, and when they take them all out, then they take that one out, and they'll come back with a plan that works from the standpoint of the ordinance. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, and then, so then the height, to the height. Who is,
Well, I'm not happy with the height, although that little bit isn't a big problem. I'm not happy with the fact that this building is so large in this neighborhood. It is not neighborhood compatible. And I would like to, I just can't think of any other entry to the town, into Santa Barbara, that has got this huge a building right there at the entry. And there may be, but I got to sort it through my mind. But I'm really concerned about the height of this building. I mean, about the size of this building, not the height so much. I think if the height was all the height was back, and they had only 3-story or 2-story at the street levels, that'd be fine. But I don't. The height isn't the issue that's a problem with me. And I think that interior courtyard is really a bad planning thing to have. It's not going to be used by anybody, and the building could really benefit by having that space made with greater setback and lawns and gardens in front. And I would hate to have them go away here thinking that we're buying into that 3- and 4-story interior courtyard.
Mr. Chair?
yes, Vice Chair House?
As I try and imagine getting off the freeway and entering Santa Barbara, I don't see this as being something that I would notice very much. I'd see it past the trees on my left side. However, I am curious to know more about what the impact is going to be if I'm leaving Santa Barbara, heading towards the freeway, which we didn't really see in your animation, just from the intersection. So getting a better idea of whether this feels looming over the gas station, not that the gas station is important, but just that it seems out of scale going in that direction. Would be good to know.
For the owners of the gas station, you're important.
Yes. For now, gas is still important.
Yeah. Okay. Other thoughts on the specifically the 45 and I think that's a good sort of differentiation between, like, if you're okay with a particular small element, especially in this case, going up above the 45 versus still not being okay necessarily with the overall massing and the size and bulk. Okay, so if everyone's in pretty good summary of that.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I guess the question I would have, this is a 63-unit project.
That's right.
Is that one unit on the up on the upper level, or is it 2 units that you're encroaching into the height limit?
It's just one unit. It
Yeah.
was a design decision,
What
not
is
a
what is
density.
so important about 63 versus 61 or 62? I mean, is the developer going to lose so much money that the project dies if he doesn't have 63? I don't think so, and I think that finding that encroachment into the height is okay is a function of, on this big site, not necessary. You lose a unit. And I would rather see that happen than to have that thing stuck up there and grant a waiver. I think the 63 units is simply, it has been arrived at, I could be wrong here, by trying to get as many parking places as you can on the property, and then that equals the units. And maybe that isn't even a fair analysis, because I see a lot of projects being built without parking today, residential. But I don't see the need to give a waiver on height when we're talking about a unit being the criteria.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, if it's a design thing, then prove some of us wrong. Okay. So any other comments that we want to add to this? Okay. So let me try to summarize, and you guys can add if I miss some.
Let me.
Yeah.
I'll let you go here.
I'll believe it when I see it.
The deck on the was it second floor at the corner, third floor.
Good floor.
If that wasn't covered with a roof, that would even open up that corner more. how important is that deck to have a roof over it?
Very.
It's a question. I mean, I'm
Alright.
trying to find a way to get this thing smaller, to get it more compact, to get more setbacks, you know, and give the city what they want from the standpoint of providing housing, which we'll never provide enough housing, but we will certainly destroy the city by bad architecture or overbuilt architecture.
All right. Or destroy the city by not doing housing and then, and then getting, getting Orange County. All right. Not that there's anything wrong with Orange County, but there is. All right. Okay. Okay, let me summarize the comments so far, because this is for conceptual. So, first, HLC understands that very much the need for housing in Santa Barbara and is very encouraging of the project in general, and the need for housing, especially this type of affordable housing or in the range that's missing. Regarding this particular project in this particular location, the HLC is concerned with the size and bulk and scale of the project, especially regarding its Castillo, the Castillo Street, and the way in which it interacts with the 1- and 2-story houses that are beyond. In general, HLC is supporting of larger massing on the corner, especially on Cabrillo Street, and smaller massing and greater setbacks on Castillo Street. One potential a way of getting more setbacks is to look at the internal courtyard as a possibility for moving portions of the building. And most of the commissioners were also not convinced that the internal courtyard would be is adding a lot to the project, and may be helpful to remove portions of it. The architecture as designed along Castillo and Cabrillo Street and the breakups of the massing is preferable, and articulation is preferable to the elevations along the freeway side, the long back freeway side, as well as the side facing the single-family neighborhood. So whatever that east, I won't call it a direction because I'm not sure if it's exactly the plans. Let's see. The 45-foot height element, there is a concern that while this particular execution of the 45-foot height element was supportable by most commissioners, there's a concern that the overall size of the project height needs to be reduced. And there's an understanding that this element was a design element, so it needs to be thought of with all those things in context. Another, for the next time you come back as well, if we can have views from leaving Santa Barbara, and the video was very helpful. I think it was a good way of understanding the building, especially from the street level. And so views from coming down Cabrillo, from leaving Santa Barbara, as well as probably an aerial circulation view, or not circulation, but panning view around the building so we can understand it from the bird's eye as well, which I think will help us to understand the design. Let's see, any other comments that want to be added?
Just a minor clarification. It's Carrillo Street instead of Cabrillo Street, so.
Oh, sorry, yes, strike all the Bs.
Otherwise, we have a totally different project.
Yes, that's right. Something else got just commented on it.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Lenvick, and then we'll.
I have not discussed architecture in my comments because I think we're going to have to see them upgraded. However, I am not particularly fond of the little eyebrows of tile that form some of the roof elements.
Okay. So let it be noted. So that, yeah.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I have a question.
At least like a commissioner, I think that your first general comment is right. I think just that we haven't gotten into the architecture yet and some of those things, but although, except for to comment that go towards those two elevations more than the other two.
Anybody have any idea how tall the existing Tijuana canopies are? Because that would be kind of useful information to know. Okay, they're 30 feet and the building's 15 feet higher or something, I don't know.
I guess 35-ish.
Something like that. Okay.
Okay, so maybe that as well with your 3D rendering and video, if you can have trees approximate sizes, in that as well for analyzing it from both the freeway and from the around.
We can pull that from Google Earth Pro.
Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Chair, in that line of thought as well, if you could summarize the comments on tree removal. There was one comment that there's not a concern to remove more Tijuanas than proposed, or if you can speak to summarizing those comments.
All right. So does anyone like Tijuanas?
I'm afraid they're probably right up there with junipers.
I don't have any problem with the Tijuanas being removed. I think they create a beautiful mess for a parking lot that isn't of any consequence. But for anything else, I think they're a problem.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I didn't hear any. Are we against what they're currently proposing for? Okay. So I think everyone's okay with the plan as proposed in terms of the removing of Tijuanas. Okay, officially. All right. Any other comments that want to be added before? All right. In that case, any questions from you before we?
No, thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you next time. Okay, so now we have a recess because we have item 3 was dropped. So that was for 2:45. So we'll reconvene and let's see, is there, I guess this is probably everyone from this. There's no one here from the other item. So let's just, want to just plan on reconvening at 3:15 or 3:10, maybe? 3:10, okay?
Mr. Chair, before we adjourn
Okay.
or recess, I meant to bring up during announcements
Okay.
a request to maybe agendize a discussion of meeting protocol and whether or not we should consider still having remote viewing and public comment and stuff like that, because that no longer exists, and there's been concerns expressed about how that kind of rules out availability to a certain part of the public.
Okay, yeah, so maybe that could be agendized for next time and we can fill us in on.
I can look into that. I do know there are discussions happening within the city regarding that already. So
Be good
if
to
not
keep
next
us in
time,
the
we'll
loop
definitely
and
keep
informed.
you
Okay.
posted
Yeah,
on
and
how
maybe
that's
even
going.
just as maybe if it's announcement stuff, we can just be kept up to speed, and then if we want to actually have a discussion on it, we could then have an agendized item. But even if we don't agendize something for next time, maybe we can at least have an update as to where things are, and if there is an idea of when we'll have a new plan.
Sure. Okay.
Also, was the air circulation or air conditioning system modified because of COVID? Do you know?
I do not know.
Is there any reason we couldn't have the doors open in mild weather?
I do not know. I can certainly look into
Yeah,
that for you and
it might
follow up.
make us more comfortable if doors and windows can be open.
Sure. Okay.
And I don't know. I have no objection to that.
Yeah, that sounds. And I know I have been in here in meetings before where they have a.
Yeah, we used to do that all the time.
The answer right now.
All right, and I know it's usually really bad weather, so. All right. All right. In that case, well, let's recess, and we'll see you in 25 minutes, which is enough time to walk to coffee.
Mr. Chair.
Historic Landmarks Commission, are we ready to go? Yep, okay. Historic Landmarks Commission, April 13th, 2022. And we are on to our final item, item 4. This was a continued item for project design approval, 524 Chapala Street. The project site is located within the EPV district. Proposal for a 323 square foot addition to an existing single-story commercial building. Project includes renovations of the existing Chapala Street facade and landscape and hardscape improvements to the parking lot. Project design approval, and this is a typo, it says and final approval, but it's actually just project design approval.
That's correct.
Yeah. Are requested. Project compatibility findings are required. Project was last reviewed on March 30th, 2022. All right, so with that, so welcome. If we'll have a brief thing by staff, and I don't have the comments here, but maybe we can pull them up.
Yes, I'm pulling them up now,
them
and we
for
can
the-
just go through
okay.
them.
Great, there we go. All right, unless you photoshopped this. Okay, great. So we'll go through these, and this is helpful as well to as we go through the review. And then you'll have 15 minutes to introduce yourself and go through the plans and go through the changes and how you answered the comments.
Okay,
So-
great, thanks.
All right, so the motion was to continue in 2 weeks to the full commission with the following comments. Number 1, in general, the landscaping plan is supportable and a huge improvement, and the commission appreciates the idea of creating a plaza forecourt for a semi-public space. 2, the commission would like to see renderings updated with the landscape plan fully expressed. The pots need to be substantial, and the plants in general need to be substantial as well, but the commission needs to see renderings and elevations to see how they play out. 3, provide differentiation of the pedestrian path up the middle and the parking lot. 4, provide differentiation of the entry and the hardscape of the entry, with the suggestion to make it similar to the kitchen door entry. 5, provide a lighting design plan and core specifications for lighting. 6, the commission suggests for the markers to divide the parking spaces, consider using brass markers or something similar, which has potential for donor appreciation. Applicant shall look at the potential articulation, this is 7. 7, applicant shall look at the potential articulation or added detail for the kitchen wall. 8, restudy and perhaps minimize the current design of the kitchen entry. Make sure to consider the expansive wall that is there as part of the design. Make the proportions of the opening more appropriate to El Pueblo Viejo. The tile shall be proper to EPV. 9, the main entry design's canopy is problematic. Either lose it altogether or redesign in a way that works with both the traditional architecture and the columns, as well as the metalwork that is traditional. One point in particular is a single chain or single support for the canopy does not look structurally proper as a traditional detail. 10, the classical detailing of the columns and the moldings need to be studied with historic examples shown, with the section and details worked out so that they relate properly. 11, the mission gable parapet wall above the entry needs additional study. Perhaps study molding proportions, sizes, and shapes, as well as other adjustments such as height and/or thickness of walls and profiles. 12, the glass doors and windows shall have additional muntins or divisions in a more EPV divided way. All right, and 13, some commissioners are against a strong blank wall and want to see a breakup of the wall plane slightly so it is articulated and not a single plane, with the potential for pilasters or other ways to break up the wall plane. The motion was by Uli, the second was by Drury, it was 7-0-0. Howes was absent, the motion carried. All right, so with that.
Ron, you want to introduce yourself? You just press the...
Oh yeah, and make sure you press all your bright green should glow. Yeah, and talk right into the microphone.
And the green light should come on.
Yeah.
Does this work? Okay. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. My name is Ron Zona, and I've been on the board of directors of the Jewish Federation of Greater Santa Barbara 24 years. The first year I was there was the year that we bought this building. It was the smart and final office buildings when we got it, and you've seen pictures of what it looked like then and looks like now. We haven't changed anything in the front. We've done some work, obviously, on the inside to make it more compatible with what we do. We're a public service organization. We give services to kids, to the elderly. We have programs, we have cultural events, we do a film festival. We fill our building with people, and we do it regularly. We probably have about 10,000 visitors or visits a year. not accounting for the same person coming maybe 2 days in a row. We're actively involved. We appreciate the comments and the suggestions that you've made on the designs. We like the designs that we've done. And I think you're going to find that the corrections or adjustments in accordance with your recommendations, we're hoping you'll find satisfactory. What we ask of you, please, give some deference to the people who work there on a daily basis, to their aesthetic values, to the people who contributed the money to purchase the building and to this remodel, which is a $1.8 million event. And that's not easy to do for a modest nonprofit. Some deference, please, to those who are there daily, who attend the services. We like what we have done, and I'm hopeful that you'll like as well the corrections that have been made. So on that note, I'll turn you back over to Jan. Thank you.
Okay, great. Good afternoon to everybody. And what I've done is I've kind of enumerated the responses, Anthony, in order to the way you've read them, so I could just go through them. So obviously, we're happy with your response on number 1, and no comment is necessary for that. On number 2, if we can go to exhibits 4.2 and 4.3, we've updated the accurate renderings to reflect the plantings that Sam has articulated in the plan. And they address a lot of the comments that were made, and especially the breakup and complement to the simple wall spaces that are on either side of the main entry there. So these renderings now have been revised to kind of show the species at about a 5-year maturity that Sam has specified.
Sorry, I'm trying to get
Yeah,
it to
and
zoom
try a zoom across a square or a control.
Anything, you can just draw a box now.
Oh, Dropbox now,
Yeah.
okay. Sorry, I'm just gonna blow up the first
Yeah,
one.
no worries.
Oh, there you go.
We're all learning how to drive this
Okay,
bus.
yep. Bear with me and we'll get it. So that is showing how the palms would look and the cordyline indivisias and the olive trees as they would present themselves in the foreground against the front facade. So, and the pottery is on either side of the front awning, and the plantings below, foundation plantings, are all shown more or less in a real way, so you can see how the softening of the effect off the plaza is really being accomplished by our planter beds flanking the entry. And you can see that the rendering also accounts for the king palms that are quite prolific on site and along Chapala Street, so that theme is pulled into the property, and this one is going to be a king palm as well, but that is showing a palm clump. The olive trees break up the building to our north. The olive trees also frame the entry of the kitchen and again soften the rendering in the front facade. We have this jacaranda that is existing that creates a nice shade tree, a nice canopy tree in the foreground of the right front of the plaza. So that's kind of
Okay,
a quick
great.
summary of the elevation.
Thank you, Sam. And then if we can go to the last sheet, L1, that'll engage the paving discussion and the comments. These are the paving plans, so.
Control 0.
Control 0.
Go back out.
Control 0.
Hit cancel.
Cancel.
Move the mouse.
Yeah.
Cancel.
Right up there, yeah.
Gotcha, sorry. Control 0.
Oh, great.
There we go.
Okay.
So, again, this plan was revised in response to the comments. And, I'll let Sam get into some of the specifics about plants, which he's already kind of addressed. But we articulated, and Phil Suding coined the term like welcome mats at the beginning of the entry off the sidewalk and at the entry to the building with a slightly different paving pattern. And then we embellished the legibility of the pathway with the big pots. The pots are significantly sized now, and then some paving pattern changes to kind of, indicate that pathway. And it still maintains its usability as a plaza, but the geometries are pleasant and it looks good. On item 5, you might notice the comment had to do with landscape lighting and lighting. And so this plan also indicates all the locations for the various lights that are employed, the bollards, the entryway lights at either side of the pilasters off the sidewalk, in the archway, in the recess of the archway with, per Commissioner Lenvick's comment, we'll show you how we articulated the arch and the recess above it. We also have like some uplights hidden behind the columns in ground. And I think that's pretty much it in terms of the lighting plan.
We've got bollards on either side of the entry, we've got bollards in the parking lot, and we've got wall lights in the pilasters, again, as Jan mentioned. So we've tried to illuminate the exterior boundary in the planters where we can. The front entry is highlighted nicely at both the street and at the building. So below, we have some of the fixtures. That's a little blow-up we can show you of the bollard that we're thinking of. They're kind of old world in our mindset, and thinking that the light illumination is actually shrouded and hidden underneath the top piece. This is the wall light that's in the pilasters, so it shines directly on the ground. Zoom back out. Okay, that kind of summarizes the light a little bit.
So if you go back to L1, Sam, which you're on, we did take to heart the comment about the brass markers incorporated into the pavement to kind of delineate the parking spaces. And of course, that will be, the specs on that will bring back on final approval. The board has concern, the JCC board has concern about the flushness of those in the pavement so the utility of the space is still maintained. Then if we go back to 4.2 and 4.3, no, you were there.
Are those the four drawings? Let me look here.
Yeah. You're there, 4.3, the one before it. Nope, too far. What next one down? Okay.
One more?
No, that's perfect. Thank you. So this one, we kind of made some slight modifications to address kind of the modicum of comments that the various board members maintained. One is we added the grill, the decorative historical grill vents at either side of the wall. We felt that with the change in proportions per Commissioner Grumbine's suggestion on the kitchen entry to the right there, we also went forward with the kind of tile pattern we like, which we felt was very contextual with the building across the street and other buildings on Chapala Street. But it's important to note that features of the facade are very special to the purpose of the JCC. The blue and white colors are very consistent in the history of Judaica and various Jewish themes. So we felt that enlargement and width of the kitchen entry and the change in proportions to make them more traditional, and the vents and the landscaping really do a nice job of breaking up those wall planes. Finally, if we can go on to comment 8. I think we've addressed again comment 8. And then item 9, we chose a path in response to item 9 of evaluation and, how critical the awning is to both the functional issues and, we feel the aesthetic issues. And, we did refine it. We're going to show you those refinements in a minute. But Lauren came prepared to tell you why the awning is so important to the JCC and to hopefully convince the board of its applicability in this instance. So I'll let Lauren, have the floor for a minute here.
Hi, I'm Lauren Katz. I'm the current president of the Board of Jewish Federation of Greater Santa Barbara. And I just want to reiterate that due to security concerns, we need to install an airlock entry into our building with all the issues going on in the world right now. So for us, that's really a non-negotiable. We work with security experts and we work with the police force regularly, and we have had some incidences. So the airlock is absolutely critical to add for the safety of everyone who comes to the building. And because we have that airlock, we absolutely need to have some sort of sun and weather awning, because otherwise that airlock will be 100 degrees if there's no protection from the sun. And also, when it rains, hopefully we will get rain in the future here in our arid climate, we need to keep people dry as they're waiting to get in and admitted. Many of our clients, the vast majority, are elderly. They're frail. They're on walkers. They're in wheelchairs. Many people come to the building and they're dropped off. And so, making it safe for them is really, really critical for us. And we have taken care to make the awning similar to other awnings here in town, similar to the Granada, and also we have designed it so that the underneath is very pretty blue and white Jewish stars, which is significant to us. And so I think that's about it.
Yeah. The other thing you told me you wanted to mention was the idea of a kuppah and its symbolism in the Jewish faith. So there, besides the functional reasons, there's some kind of very metaphorical ones that we like as part of the device. So what I'd like to do now is go to pages 4.2 and 4.3, where we're getting into the detail, and that I'm sure Commissioner Lenvik is going to be very interested in. So. I'm sorry, I'm looking for 3.2 and 3.3. So these are the sections through the awning and its relationship to the archway. And we have another exhibit that shows the detailing of the column capital, the simple Tuscan column, with the relationship of that arch molding, how it relates and sits on that, so it's very consistent with the classic orders. The space, the groove or the reveal up behind the arch is where that lighting would be hidden. And you can see like the beginnings of the traditional detailing on the canopy itself in terms of the little crown mold in the channel, some of the hanger rod architecture. On the face of the awning are the words Shalom in Hebrew, which per Commissioner Uli's comments, we maintain that they were recessed inside the channel, so they're not sitting on top. But there's a dove, the abstract dove is the hanger plate for the rod. So if you can go to the next page, Sam, we could give you a little bit more detail on that. Actually, 3.3, the next page.
The other way.
Yeah. Thanks. So you can see on the box up in the middle there, that's a zoom in on the Shalom with the dove and the hanger rod, and the hanger rod's interface with the wall and the detail on the left. And the detail mid-left on the left side of the page is the relationship of the column capital, the column base, and the column diameter. The right is the grill work, the vent grill work on the face of the parapets. And you can see on the upper right how the awning element is designed to engage the capital in a way that frees it up so there's no conflict there. And I think that was a big concern for some of the members to how that interface works. The coffering and the ceiling planes of the canopy itself are a perforated Jewish star pattern with the back plate, as Lauren had alluded to. And then you can see the image into the facade, a detail image there. To me, we're real excited about the look of that and the relationship of the facade of the canopy and the gentle mission-style crown above it. There's kind of a beauty there in the soft curves. And we're confident that there's enough diversity in the history of the town and the architecture that the HLC has been approving over the years that this is totally consistent. So with that, I will go on to the next page and talk about the parapet variation. So that would be on 3.4, if you can scroll down to 3.4. And what, too far, Sam? There we go. So here are variations that were suggested and that we studied. And, I think it's kind of hard to say that one is necessarily better than the other. I found a lot of example in my studies for the one we proposed where the main crown on top of the flat parapet is slightly heavier than the other ones. But there are many examples where it's stripped off completely, as per the middle one.
Is that the upper one? Do you want to blow one up?
Can you zoom into the top one and then talk them through as you go?
So this is the one suggestion where, they said, we'll make them all heavy. And we studied that, looked at that. And I personally feel that's a bit heavy. That's my preference. The next one down, Sam, if you can scroll down to that one, yeah. This one is where it's a little more contemporary, where it's stripped off. And we did, Anthony, we did thicken the parapet to get the weight of it. As you suggested, it's like 16 inches on top to evoke the adobe masonry construction. And then when you scroll down the next one, that one still felt preferential, and everybody agreed on our side of the table that that one seemed, you know, the most gentle and appropriate. So that's our study of the parapets. And then finally, I did make the revisions, Commissioner Grumbine, as you suggested, where we added muntins to the glazing and broke up the glazing. We added a horizontal band there to make the lights much more in keeping with most of the buildings in the district. And finally, the final comment, we addressed the wall planes on item 7 with the landscaping, the venting, and the widening of the tile work to break down the length of that wall. So that's kind of our presentation. We can answer questions. And
All right. Great. Anything else before we go to public comment? All right. Thank you. We'll go to public comment now, seeing no one else in the room. Unless staff has a desire to be public. Yeah, so we'll close public comment and back to the commission for questions. So let's start with questions. Anyone want to?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Butler.
2 questions. I was looking at the lighting, and maybe I missed it. I was thinking about the plaza area at night.
Mm-hmm.
Is there plans for putting additional or more or any lighting besides those that are designated in here? I'm just wondering if it's going to be.
we haven't really discussed that. I think the charge was to avoid the, you know, or address dark sky issues and like maintain shielded structures all the way. We certainly wouldn't want to put any like flood lamps on the building itself, so.
We do have the bollards, as you noticed we described. We do want to and think that some flood lighting against the wall and the ambient reflectivity on the wall itself could be quite handsome and quite dramatic, and I think reflect out into the plaza. And to that note, this is the type of light that I've used successfully. I didn't put this in the plans, but that's upside down. That's an FXPB low voltage.
I don't know if City TV can do this with their different fancy camera, but can you pan?
It'll go
We used
down.
to back in the
There
old
we go.
days. All right.
Yes,
there
there we go.
Okay, so let's see how
So
we can
it's,
get.
it's a hooded
without
and
zooming in.
shrouded kind of rectangular fixture that can
How do
be
we know?
mounted.
We won't. You see the trust? It could be like a zoom in of my coffee cup, or it probably will be.
It might miss its mark. Okay.
All right, there we go.
But the idea for the commission is that this is a hooded, shrouded rectangular light that's on a stake that could be mounted at 12 inches high or something in the ground and hidden in the landscaping. And it could be tilted backwards or forwards so it could wash the wall. And part of that kind of
Right, that-
reflectivity is what we're thinking. would
Commissioner
work in
Butler, we
the
did discuss that ambient reflectivity, but no flood lighting per se.
We didn't want a post light necessarily to kind of interrupt the plaza.
Yeah, I would agree. I noticed you have, it calls out low intensity wall wash light.
And that's what this
And that's what
depicts.
you're referring to
Correct.
there. Okay, great. So I think you got my comment. The other one was there's the fascia across the base.
Mhm.
What material is that?
When you say that, that's plaster. On the base of the building?
We go
Yeah.
to elevation real fast just to confirm, so that we're making sure that
Yeah,
we're talking. the same
So
thing.
it's not a
A43.
stone fascia, it's a plaster, it's a.
Yeah, it's a
Okay, I got it.
enhanced plane. It's out 1.5 inches, 2 inches from the face of the building, and it has an articulated little base mold on top of that.
But that whole thing is all plastic.
Right.
Great.
You're talking about the wainscot?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, other questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Manuel?
Question. Can you go to the landscape plan?
One.
That shows all the materials at the bottom.
Yeah, let me zoom in on those real quick. Let me make my little box. There it is.
Getting good at this.
I'm getting faster.
He's gonna get hired
I'm
by the
not
city.
quick, but I'm a good learner.
The 2 paving options, are those alternates or are those 2 different?
So that's, I'm glad you asked that. The left alternate is the main paver that we want to use in a consistent running bond pattern. That is the actual vehicular travel paver. It's permeable, has gaps so that we can make sure we meet stormwater. The right paver is what we'd like to use as our welcome mat or our entry off the sidewalk and entry at the main 2 doors, the kitchen and the main entry. So we're dividing those in color and in size to kind of create a little more special ground plane effect. And we thought we'd use a herringbone pattern even to kind of
Differentiate.
contrast and differentiate that welcome mat, if you will, for the pedestrian entry.
I would say that the color on the screen there is not really a great representation of the color of the main paving. It's a little more golden than that in
Our
reality.
intent was maybe not as flash, but a little more natural and have it look more like a sandstone, more like a natural stone color. And I think Belden and some of these other groups do make a mission color that has a little variation of brown and tan that we're looking forward to.
And the nice thing is we're in person, so they can actually bring a real sample.
Yay! That we will,
That-
that's
Yeah, exactly.
And then on this view, there's these pots shown to the right there, and then also in the renderings, a very different pot.
Yeah, the pots at the front door are intended to be different, to differentiate. They're a more round pot.
Sorry, I meant the pots in the parking lot. In the rendering, there's...
Oh, the rendering is not consistent with the pots that they selected.
Okay, so these are the pots that we should be
Yeah.
looking at. Okay. And then on this plan, actually, there's a light in the parking lot just south of the walkway. Is that, what is that? Is that a bollard?
No,
That
that's
one?
just an elevation marker. That's not a light.
Oh,
That's not a graphic that should be there. So
Okay,
That's,
okay.
that's one of those
Perfect.
floaters that's, we didn't catch.
And then I was driving by the site and I noticed the jacaranda has fallen over, might be uprooted.
I haven't noticed that. I haven't been by.
Wow, that's
Anybody been
real-time
by?
information.
Yesterday.
So this,
And I could see the root ball.
this one in the right corner looks like it toppled, huh?
It's a really nice one too, but I could see the root ball.
stamp it down.
Put up stake, act like it never happened.
We'll check on that right away, because this, of course, is something that we were depending on to create
Yeah.
some softness against the Victorian to the south.
Yeah.
If for whatever reason it's in bad health or that condition of the wind of the last few nights blew it over, that's sad, but we'll replace it in kind, I think, with a good-sized tree.
Okay. It's a really pretty tree. It didn't look intentional, obviously. So.
We wanted to
You drove
keep
by
it.
when we were
Hatchet
chopping,
marks
yeah.
on the side. Yeah.
There are vandals around, but I don't think they'd do that.
That's a big tree to push over.
That's a big risk.
Yeah.
Wow, well, that's
but-
current, real-time information.
Yeah. That's all my questions.
Okay, thank you.
There's George Washington and the apple tree, and there's George Washington Smith and the jacaranda. All right, sorry, a little HLC humor. All right, other questions? Questions? Commissioner Lenvik?
Yeah, just to confirm, the north and south wall, of course, are not accessible.
Correct.
So your molding that's on the front of the building at the top of the wall, it just stops right there.
Well, I will tell you this, if the wall is higher than our molding, we're going to die into that wall.
Mhm.
And if it's not, we're going to request permission on a temporary basis to have the molding wrap around that wall.
Well, I think your plan actually indicates that it's kind of held, the new framing is kind of held back from the property line, so you are turning that much at least.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That was really the only question I had.
Okay, I have a question. And I might just be reading it graphically wrong here. Can you go to the front door on this plan, and then
You want me to?
yeah,
pull up
zoom
this
into the
plan?
front. Yeah, if you can zoom into that front porch area. I'm trying to see the dash line. Okay, so dash line is canopy. Oh, okay. So I think I was reading the pots as columns in this. Okay, so that projection, and maybe we can go to the your 3D model of the
For
for the canopy.
Yeah, 4.3. There you go, right there.
Yeah. Okay, or the even the gray ones.
That would be 3.2 and 3.3.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I just want to make sure I'm understanding, because this looks, and it just might just be a 3D illusion just because of the modeling, but it looks like it's extending further than the plan
It's
shows.
just the modeling.
It's just the model?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
Okay,
not.
that makes sense. And then, can you zoom into where the capitals are in the bottom right? Yeah, we're just zoom into there. So am I reading it right that you're jogging off the wall with the canopy up in the corner there?
So the only thing that goes back to the wall are the outside channels at the ends.
Got it.
And the 4 bays in the middle.
Okay,
So it's free of the column and the arch.
got it. Okay, that's what I was wondering. I was wondering, we hadn't zoomed in this close. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, that's it for my questions. Actually, one more question. So, let's see, trying to see what our actual verbiage was used. Okay, so in 10, we said that the classical detailing of the columns and the moldings need to be studied with historical examples shown with section and details worked out as they relate to the property. And I think that you're getting there with the 3D modeling and showing us it, but I didn't see any historic examples that you were showing us.
I have in the file, I think we've got like all kinds of photographs for all the elements of this. If you,
I can pull that up if you want to give me a couple
let me see,
minutes.
I might be able to
Samples
identify.
all over town, right?
Yeah.
We have a lot of examples.
Let me see if I can find one. Well, the one that I could identify right off the bat for the board is the Montecito Bank and Trust on the corner of State and Carrillo, where it has exactly this. It has the simple arch, round arch supported on the columns. But the difference is that ours has the arch is embellished with the mold, while that one's just a simple opening in the wall.
And actually, if you, are these the ones that you're going to have on the screen?
Yeah, I'm just looking, there's so many that I just wanted to find something that's most applicable.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. And luckily, we're on a day that you guys are the last item, and this is, so we have a little time. We can go till 7, and then they'll bring us coffee at 6.
More coffee for you?
That was part of the earlier discussion. We found out it was our first day back, so we found out that it's only water only, and I thought that was a bad general game plan. If it was for long meetings, it gets.
Yeah, the only other thing I could tell you as I look through this is that these are proportioned and modeled right out of Vitruvius. The books Palladio, the publishing of the orders, and the relationship between column proportions and capitals and all that. Other than the example I just gave you, I don't have a direct one, but I know I could find so many. So here's one that if you like I could put on the table, and maybe you can zoom in right here.
And I'll pass it around as well.
This is a great example of the Cornice arch mold and the capital relationship.
And
that's kind of what we're.
And I think part of it was, and also combining that with the canopy, with the metal canopy, and seeing how, like you have sort of this is an example that's sort of engaged, but.
Yeah, I mean there's several in town. Not to mention the least of here's a whole bunch of exhibits.
And I'll pass these down as well, just so others, because we're.
This is Santa Barbara based. Those are canopies in a variety of situations throughout Santa Barbara, engaging the arch in different ways.
Are those duplicates or? Are those
No, these are just a variety of study of parapets. Here's a study of more parapets.
We've got second copies of those, right? You didn't have that set?
There's some really non-Santa Barbara examples of incredibly ornate ironwork and arches, like along the lines of what Jeff Shelton does in terms of almost a playful Art Nouveau approach.
last time we reviewed a Jeff Shelton project, I told him too much whimsy, so I don't know if,
Yeah, so that's why we're.
I don't know if we want to go there to convince. Yes, I know, no, no.
And I voted no.
Yeah, I voted no and said too much whimsy, so.
Well, I don't think we have too much.
No, I don't know.
It's very, very classic.
Yeah.
Yes, it's very
Yeah.
classic.
Okay. Any, pass or see these? Okay, I think we can get into this with comments as well, but, and I think these are helpful to.
Do you want me to leave those with you?
Look, I think in our discussion, I want to turn to some of these, but, okay, so why don't we go into comments now? And actually, maybe why don't we just walk down the comment list to start with and just talk about each one and see what, if there's a consensus on it? All right, so we had one in general, we like the landscaping, that was good. 2, commission would like to see renderings updated with landscape plan fully expressed, that was done. The pots need to be substantial, and the plants in general need to be substantial, as well as the commission needs to see renderings and elevations to see how they play out. So I think the renderings and elevations were done. The pots, and what, did you want to jump on that, Commissioner Mangan?
Yeah, I think the square pots, or at least the ones shown, were a little too contemporary for El Pueblo Viejo. So something more in suit and fitting with the style.
All right, any other comments on that? All right.
I agree. I think round pots
Yeah.
or whatever would be much more appropriate.
Okay. 3, provide differentiation of the pedestrian path up the middle and the parking lot. So differentiating parking lot and pedestrian path. How are people feeling about that?
I'm good with it.
Yeah.
I like the landing pad idea.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Great.
We also have the rest of the path bordered, so it's got an alignment for the pedestrian to kind of be in that pathway and not spilling out into the rest of the
Yeah,
plaza.
gotcha,
Even
yeah.
though the running bond is very common and it feels like a consistent plaza, there's kind of an alignment to get to the front door from the street.
Yep, great.
With some bordering.
All right. 4, provide differentiation of the entry and the hardscape of the entry with a suggestion to make similar to kitchen door entry. So I think that was also what we're talking about. So that's done.
It's accomplished.
Yeah. 5, provide lighting design plan and core specifications for lighting. And this is, of course, going to get also reviewed. Commissioner House will get a bite at it, too, for final. So I think that, but the general direction they're going with lighting, is everyone feeling comfortable with? Yes. All right. Yeah, Commissioner Lenbick.
I haven't been on the board long enough, but I thought there was some kind of objection to washing the light across a wall in EPV.
I don't know if there is.
We had a lot of debate down with the new hotels that were built on State Street.
I think on the California Hotel, there was
Yeah.
an exception.
Well,
to that,
they
or
had
discussion.
some murals on there and one of them lit, but I don't recall if there was kind of a.
Okay. So maybe we'll note that as more discussion and
Well,
needed with-
I have no problem with it. It's just that it's.
I think it's
We need to be consistent.
Yeah, exactly. I think first we need to make sure that we know what our what we're quoting are actual rules, and then if it needs an exception, that an exception is asked for, and then we can discuss whether it should or not. So we'll just say with the wall wash lighting to be TBD further, and if Commissioner House was here, I'm sure he would quote it in its original Latin.
Chair Grumbine, if I could interrupt, I just need to ask the applicant team to be sure and speak directly into the microphone when you're speaking. I think we're having some trouble on the public TV side hearing.
Great, yeah, now that we're back to non-Zoom. All right, so wall wash. Okay, 6, the commission suggests for the markers to divide the parking spaces, consider using brass markers, similar for donor appreciation. What thoughts on their solution for the markers? Anyone? I think Commissioner.
Well,
Louie,
since
you
I brought
made
it up.
Yeah.
It makes a whole lot of sense. They've got to be flush with whatever the paving surface is. So I don't think there's any issue there.
Okay, and the proposed currently was what? Because there is markers shown, but was
We don't have I said we don't have a
spec for
yet.
it? Okay, yeah, TBD. Okay, got it. Okay. Okay. 7, applicant shall look at potential articulation or added detail for the kitchen wall. And so I think that it was answered with, or the solution proposed was the grill, right, or additional articulation. And also tied with that is the dropping of the door. Widening and dropping of the door. Articulation of the wall, are people feeling good with it now in terms of how it is?
I was fine with it before, but.
Yeah. I wasn't, but I'm feeling better now. I think the solution's good. Commissioner Lenvik? Yeah. All right. All right, restudy and perhaps minimize the current design of the kitchen entry. Make sure to consider the expansive wall. Make the proportions of the opening more appropriate EPV, and the tile. So, so with this, you restudied it, and we just talked about that, and I think that this is much more of, I think everyone's agreeing that this is more appropriate and scaled properly. Actually, as additional note was also helpful for the blank wall to see the plants on it, because with that, which is part of what the Spanish colonial canvas is about. So that was great. So then unless anyone else feels differently, I think that the kitchen opening is in a good place now. The tile discussion, I think we want to hold off. Let's hold off until we get to the entry as well. I think it's tied to it. Let's just jump in now as just purely tile. I think that there can be a solution that gets both of what you want, your color and some patterning and some other things, in still having it tied to this in a Spanish way too, sort of the EPV way. So I think it totally makes sense. I think color-wise, even though we gave Jeff Shelton a tough time for the similar colors, but they were a little stronger. I think that it can be worked with to get it in a little more Spanish colonial, whether that's bordering or other ways of doing it. I think, and this is definitely a good, strong step in the right direction, because the previous one was more of a modern, contemporary take on the tile. So this is definitely going in the right direction, and I think you can get there with your color scheme and with your the iconographical meaning behind it. Okay, so any other tile comments that anyone wants to add in terms of tile? Okay. And then, so now the main entry, 9, the main entry design as canopy is problematic. You lose it altogether or redesign in a way that works with both the traditional architecture and the columns, as well as metalwork that is traditional. One point in particular is a single chain or single support for the canopy does not look structurally proper as a traditional design or a traditional detail. All right, so, and then I think tied to this, we'll just lump it all in one discussion, the classical detailing of the columns and related historic examples. We can kind of discuss those both together. So, comments on that? I had made some of these comments, and looking at some of your examples. So I think here's the challenge, and it still is a challenge. I think I still might be still okay with giving it design approval with more development to come, but in my mind, you've really taken on a pretty tough design challenge to try to combine these two elements that are. And I could see right away one way, because they're in conflict. So the columns and the way in which they're resolving, and then having a canopy come and intersect with it, is a tough design challenge to get it to play out to feel very natural and easy and right. And your examples, I didn't see one that actually had columns. You had some with surround, just molding surrounds, and that might be a way of simplifying it out the columns and just going with the molding surround. But if you're trying to get these two things to work together, this has gotten better in my mind, but it still is not. It's still a far ways from really being fully resolved in an elegant way. And I think your solution of sort of carving out a piece, because you're avoiding the conflict of the two things, is sort of showing that this is a tough design issue to get all these things to resolve, sort of in an elegant way. So I don't know if there's other ways of bracketing it off and getting it more off. In general, we've been tough on metal awnings because everyone's been doing metal awnings, and now EPV has gone super metal awning. So in general, we've been saying no to metal awnings for the last couple of years now. So that's a kind of a reoccurring thing. Now, the idea of shade, I think, is totally answerable. There's lots of ways that Santa Barbara shades things, and it's not only through metal awnings. So I think there's lots of potential ways for solving that as a design element. I think it's very important to shade that area, and a covered walk when it does rain is also good. So I don't think anyone here is against a shading structure. I think it's just the way in which these two things are being articulated, this arch with the columns, and at the same time this canopy that's being inserted horizontally. It's just not, it's a tough challenge, and it's not resolved well enough now. Now, I could see it going a couple different directions, and I don't think design approval wise, it can be, I think it can still be refined, and it still have the same general opening. So, yeah, so look, yeah, this is a good example of canopies here and here. In this case, they pulled the pilaster off to the side, and so they don't have that tough of a thing. It looks like there's just the moldings carrying around and inserting sort of simply into it.
The awning is engaging the pilaster.
Yeah, it is. But and in yours, you're engaging right above the column, and it's not so pilaster being half wall, half column has more freedom to get sort of run into classically. So I think it's just not that solution is not there. So either going towards a simpler surround, pulling pilasters off to the side even, or in this case they pulled it in, right?
Well, it still engages that, interferes with it.
It does engage it, but they've also don't have the full column there. So my point is that I think and because we've been hard on everyone else the last couple of years for metal awnings, you're coming in with a tough one to begin with, and it's a tough design challenge to get it to be worked out like perfectly elegantly or well and even. So I don't know if you want to keep going with it as trying to really keep this metal awning, but if you, and I like the sort of iconographical elements of it, and I really think that those are fantastic ways of using that. However, you're picking a metal awning, so it's got to be really like knock it out of the park to be able to, in my mind, to be supportable for final. So another way of shading would be obviously fabric and doing it over in a sort of traditional way. Another way would be doing it more in elegant, lighter wrought iron instead of going with a hard, big metal canopy.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think the question that you might want to pose is, does the canopy have to be as wide as it is, or could it be just the width
of in between in between the columns?
I mean, once you start dealing with the width you have here, then you have the conflicts.
Yeah.
If you made the canopy awning as wide as your arch,
your main door opening.
Yeah. And projecting out, you
that might work.
You probably solve the problem with our concerns for integrity and whatever.
Yeah, that could be.
An explanation as
Sure. Yeah.
is of value to us. We have classes there for children, and the children leave at a specified time, and the cars line up in the parking lot to come pick them up, and there are often 20 or even 30 children and parents who might be congregating right in that area. In inclement weather, we would prefer to have the larger canopy.
True, I understand that. Our problem is we're dealing with some integrity needs for the architecture, and that's what the charter tells us to do and the ordinances tell us to do. So you have your goals, we have, our standards that we have to meet in some way, shape, or form. Ours are more, subjective, and it's tough to say, well, my God, those guys are being subjective wrong. You're being objective correct, but we still have the problem of how do we keep the city kind of someplace on the straight and narrow as defined by the charter and the ordinance?
A cloth canopy of that size?
No, I'm not suggesting a cloth canopy. I'm saying you want more width, and I'm saying you could probably solve the problem of the aesthetics that we have to deal with by having a canopy which is only as wide as the opening at the arch.
Well, what I don't understand is, though, is that by freeing up the engagement, it's the delightful detail, actually, that when you arrive at the canopy, that the interface between the column, it's a very traditional classical interface, is freed up to be enjoyed by the person that approaches the building. The variations, I mean, I could deliver to you variations of engagement if that's what's necessary, but, you know, we've tested ourselves here, and we feel that this, while there's obvious differences in personal opinion, this clearly to us meets the test of the findings that have to be made for approval. And believe me, the board and the building committee, they've been on board with this since we've been at, you know, our consent calendar hearing, the last hearing, and we've discussed it. And it's not like they don't want to change, they just feel really confident that this kind of raises to the level, certainly based on, now I understand your comments, Commissioner Grumbine, about you've been hard on awnings lately, and maybe they become into fashion, but in the history of the city, lots of things have come and gone in terms of fashion. The history is replete with a history of awnings over the last 40 years in different capacities in downtown. You know, your comment about the problem of the interface where this arch changes, we think is celebrated by having it, you know, get some daylight.
So here's the problem is, aesthetically, I need to, for me to go on board with it, I need to both see and understand usually for classical architecture, there's tectonic reasons for why things are being expressed. So whether there's a bracket jumping out and holding it, that's why column capitals go past where your load is bearing. There's all these sort of rules and reasons for it. And when I look at that, I see that there's a number of rules being broken, and, you know, Michelangelo breaks the rules, but he breaks them extremely well. And so if you're going to break the rules, you really got to just, if you're going to actually go into like, well, I'm going into new territory, I'm breaking the rules, go for it. But that's a harder sell than going with sort of more something that's safer. Now, what you've done is you've combined a difficult element of an arch with landing on columns with a horizontal, you know, metal, different, you know, material. So you've set up a very difficult design challenge. And when you I look at these examples that you have here, none of them have as difficult a design challenge as you've set up for yourself here. Because if they have an arch, they don't have columns. If they have, most of them don't go outside, like this one does go outside, but most of them stay within if they're going to get complex, so they avoid having to resolve all these issues. So my point is, with us to be, or for me at least, and each of the commissioners has to kind of judge with their from their backgrounds and understandings. But for me, when I look at this, I see that it's not resolved. And so if either resolve it in a certain particular way, and using historic examples is a good way because, you know, back in the day, everyone learned the rules backwards, forwards, and sideways. And so they're resolving things in a more regularized, sort of tried and tested way. So using historic examples is a great way of usually getting taking from someone that got it right and kind of doing a spin-off. So that's really good and helpful to have these, but I'm not seeing how yours is actually.
Yeah, here's the one exactly like ours. So, and this is a famous building, Union Station. Sorry, yeah, that's what I need to do. All right, Union Station in Los Angeles has a wonderful arch and an awning that bifurcates the arch, similar to what we're doing. And there's a change and a transition at the exact point of the horizontal awning from the tile work and mold above to the tile work and mold below. So analogous to what we're doing, this would be exactly to having the column below and the molded arch above. And that's what we're doing. The only difference I might add is that we're slightly freeing up that interface so somebody could actually enjoy and visualize and see the interface between that classical mold and the column capital. But this is directly analogous to that point of interface that you're talking about, and that's a beautiful, cherished building in a Hispanic tradition.
Okay, so I'll go with the example, but I would say using this as the same example, what I would say is what they didn't do was they didn't get complex with their support, and I think that the column is a complex expression in the same way that your example with the moldings, where is it? Your arch with the moldings, maybe here as an example, the moldings come up and go through it. So, and you can say in the same way they're, you know, it's at the spring point or around where things are jumping off. so in my mind, when I look at this, I say, yeah, the architect chose not to get super complex with a pilaster or something else down here and stack things because they're trying to keep this intersection simple. So in the long and short of it is, I think that you're trying to do like 3 of these examples all together, all in one, but you're not doing any one of them in particular. And I think you've set it up for yourself in a very difficult way because you've picked a very, very tough design solution to try to solve.
Well, what I see real quickly is that top pediment, that crown mold that's at the top, very Spanish and very kind of El Pueblo Viejo, is being repeated in that awning. So that form being dropped into the horizontal awning is quite handsome and quite unique and repeating an architectural element.
I agree,
In the
but
awning, and that makes it strong in my mind because it's taking the vertical form and the top cap crown and bringing it down, so you're seeing that in a forward plane. And the uniqueness of all the connections, I understand that's important. But I'm just trying to say how this
I
form
agree and I
repeats
see that, but in my mind, that's you're also pulling in a more complex shape. So you're actually making it even more difficult for yourself as a design solution. I did see that and appreciate the sort of the mission gable reinforced in metal. Okay, so let's just sort of, I think we've kind of gone around, and so in the end, if you convince 4 out of 5, there's no problem. So if others are feeling that they're fine with it, that's fine. For me, I think it's okay for design approval, but with this element still needing to get refinements in one way or another, however this gets played out. And I could think of a couple different ways of doing it, but they're not going to be necessarily everything that you want in them. So if you went to a fabric, you wouldn't be able to do stars on the underside. If you went to a wrought iron, you might be able to do certain things, but not others. So
We would get the weather protection, but.
yeah. But so in the end, there's all kinds of things that you may or may not, or there might be a solution that gets you everything. But I don't know. That's gonna be your job to kind of figure out. Or if you think you got the votes, just go for it.
We haven't heard from any other.
Yeah, but
commissioners.
that's why I'm opening it up because now it's only been my negative vote. So on this element. So and who wants to jump in?
Architecture's a tough job, really a tough job.
Okay.
Well, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it.
Yeah, if it was easy, I'd be doing it.
All right, so how are other people feeling about the opening, the main entry opening, and the canopy and all this other?
Mr. Chairman, if I can, as a layman, not an architect, it looks like there's a lot going on here, let's put it that way. You have columns on the side, you have tiles in the background, you've got an arch across the top, and then you've got the awning, which I actually like. That's great. So it does feel like, listening to the conversation, that there's it's complex. It's a little. My first thought was, gee, could we just take the columns off? Would that be? And again, I will admit my layman status here, but it does feel a little complex, a little. I don't have a problem with the awning itself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Others?
I support you.
I don't have a problem with the awning as an element. I totally agree with the complexity and the layering and how that gets executed well. And I would agree that it's not there, but is it there enough to move forward? My sense is, in all of the examples presented, my sense is, and we've heard it a couple of times, and that is, if the awning is restricted to the primary door opening, even if it looks like a Madeleine as it's coming out of the wall, and doesn't bridge the plane of the columns, then that could probably easily be resolved in a much better way. I don't know if I said anything that's encouraging, other than the fact that I'm okay with the awning, I'm okay with the columns. You got to work out if they're going to live together.
All right. Okay, so unless there's anything else on that, we'll move on.
That's item 9 and 10 together, right?
Yeah, 9 and 10.
Item 11?
Item 11. So the Mission gable parapet wall above the entry needs additional study, perhaps study molding proportions, sizes, and shapes, and other adjustments to its height and or thickness of walls and profiles. All right, so can you go to your Mission gable study page, which was, thank you for doing that. That was very good and helpful. So,
4? There.
Yeah, so thoughts on these?
Yeah.
Any thoughts on, and I know I had made that comment, so I can, so first, thank you for showing it. I personally agree with this assessment that it's, yeah, the same. Molding is a little bit redundant, and the use of them is, they're close together, so that it's a little bit jarring. So I do like a differentiation. I appreciate using that, trying the simplified method there, but I agree, especially with the wing walls, that it still doesn't work. And then the last one was that one the one that you originally had?
The original.
Yeah, that's right. So I would say on this, and one of the comments was to change the shapes. So you did that on the middle one, you just took it off and made it a blank shape of a mission gable. I would say, so you have the cyma, which is that S-shaped crown molding, the top curve. But you repeated that cyma on the higher one, but you just shrunk it and basically made it smaller. You have a slight extension on the main walls. It's a little bit of the flat, so that's sort of an additional difference. But I think the repeating of that shape is also part of the issue. And I think if you are going to go smaller, just even changing the shape of it from non-cyma would be helpful. But and so it wouldn't be the same, and you haven't just done a mini version of the same.
Right.
So that might be the way. I agree that the upper one, when you did a larger size, it looks like Taco Bell. It looks sort of cartooned into this proportion. So those are my thoughts. But I think that's going to still be maybe some more refinement, but that's also for final profile type of thing to be developed in my mind. So, other thoughts on it?
I have no problem with the original design he had of the smaller scale for the upper.
I agree.
Okay.
Okay.
Agreed.
All right, so you might have to change it. Just okay. All right. 12, the glass doors and windows should have additional muntins or divisions in a more EPV divided way. And then, so can we look at the elevations on that just to check those?
That's a pretty good example right there, yeah.
And then is the kitchen door is solid, is that right?
The kitchen door is a glazed door, diffuse glazed door.
Okay, and are there muntins on that?
Yeah, there's a horizontal muntin in that as well.
Okay. Just one muntin, that's all we get?
Yeah, here's the point. In other words, it's actually supposed to be identical in size. I think there's a little drafting error there to the entry door, one of the entry doors. And to keep the glazing lights in proportion is good design in my view. And I wouldn't break up the right door and not the doors on the left. And this is consistent with glass light sizes all over Chapala Street corridor, so.
Okay.
And I just want to comment that you might want to just keep, this is going to be bulletproof glass. We have security issues that other businesses do not.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any thoughts on the muntins?
I'm okay with them. I know you're pushing for a few more muttons, but, I'm good with them.
I'm good.
Okay.
I may be the only person here who doesn't know what a mutton is.
Okay, so the horizontal little dividing line between the...
Instead of having a salad, they wanted.
Yeah. So on the glass note, the glass, I'm sure, will still be one sheet of bulletproof glass, so I don't think it'll make any difference in terms of that. Although I would agree with you that the doors and windows that are more modern might have no muntins on Chapala Street, I think as a traditional divided light, it would, or at least visually divided light, it would typically have more, and even if you go with George Washington Smith horizontal proportion and don't even do a vertical muntin and you just divide it into 3 or 4, that would be more traditional for. So if you want my vote, go there, but it sounds like you don't need my vote for at least at this point. So, and that's definitely a final thing. So I'll just make note of it that way. All right, 13, some commissioners are against the strong blank wall.
We addressed that in item
okay.
7, you got it. So we've covered everything. The only item of dispute is the board's position on the awning. And, I'm not sure before we tell you how we want to proceed. did I hear it right, Commissioner Grumbine, that the awning with further study could be made to work, or the board is going to find it unacceptable? Because our position will be, if the board can't live with this awning in close to the form it is, we would ask for a denial. And so, on that basis, to get PDA, or can the board, and that's not to be a threat, I'm just trying to,
You'd rather go to city council?
yeah,
Oh, really?
on it. But the question is like, we don't know if you're able to give this PDA or not. That's.
So what I was hearing, at least haven't heard anything different, is that everyone, including myself, was okay with giving PDA as long as you're going to refine, especially this canopy piece. That this was the biggest one. The other pieces seemed like, at least right now with this commission, that even things like the Muntins, that they would probably outvote me, and so and that you would get almost everything except for this main entry piece was the only one that wasn't supportable for project design approval, for it to continue to be revised, and whether that ends up changing, but it's not as currently proposed, and we don't. So this is in one size and scale. If you zoom out for projects that we review, oftentimes we'll have articulation of an opening as a thing that we consider that can come back in final and be revised and refined. But we don't like to get it too big. Now this is obviously the entry, so this is kind of the biggest piece here, but we're probably feeling comfortable enough with the size of the opening and the basic shape of the opening that we can give it project design approval, but tell you this needs to be refined more, and we're not happy with the final design, but we can move you on to project design approval. But something's gonna have to be resolved better if you're saying this is absolutely it, this is exactly the design we want and nothing else, then I think you're gonna get project design, maybe we won't give you project design approval because you aren't gonna change it anyway, so when you come back later, then you're.
No, well, so to, trying to reflect ahead, I think there are refinements. I think the concept of it is strong, and I think I could work with the board in final to make refinements of the interface between these complex issues. The comments to this board member is the complexity and the richness on a simple elevation is what we're excited about as architects. The layering, the tile work, the columns, there's a lot going on, but that's what makes it exciting and rich to approach. I think there's room to refine those interfaces and work with the board on those things, but to dismiss the concept of this kind of awning, interfacing an arch, is something where we feel like, how many go-arounds are we going to have? Because we're sure we want it, we've discussed it, and if the board can't live with that, we'll say, deny us, because we feel like, to the council's purview, this is totally consistent with the charge and El Pueblo Viejo and all that. So there's the rub. We were prepared to say, if you came at us today and said, hey, get rid of it, we were going to say, just deny us. But we're not there. We're in the middle ground, and so.
It's you would be a month or more to get to city council. I mean, you're willing to solve that problem. Have you seen the Audrey Ermis Pavilion at the Temple in Beverly Hills? You ought to look at that and form an opinion about it, because that certainly was not built with design review next to that beautiful temple. And I'm saying my comment is design review will give you a better project. It has given better projects to the city consistently over the years. And to put your feet in concrete on something like this seems to me to be a little strange, but.
Well, and that's why this discussion, because we really don't want to do that, but we're not getting a real sense of where you guys are at about it, because we feel the basic concept is strong and can be made to work. If the board members have specific issues with some of that detailing, we love to detail things. You do, I do. Let's work on that together in this process.
Well, to shorten what I think Anthony has said, I don't think we're ready to buy into the awning and the column and arch intersecting in the manner they do.
And as well, to that, no one has said absolutely not for metal awnings,
Nope.
Which is also a good from the applicant's point of view. It's a good thing because we've been saying no to metal awnings for a couple of years now. and been pretty strong about it. So you're making a good case for, and having the symbolism and those things, and the need for the cover in those. So, but at the end of the day, that makes it allowable for us to consider it, but you really got to knock it out of the park to be able to say, you're gonna change the way you've been, what you've been saying and voting for. We're gonna make a special exception, and because this is a great design and for these reasons. So you've got to really prove that, and that's the point that's been been trying to be made, is that you're trying to take on a pretty tough design challenge, and that's understandable and laudable. However, you got to convince us in the end that it really works.
Yeah.
Well, but I mean that is, it's doable, it's possible. It may be that certain things change, like for example, the columns, maybe that goes to molding, maybe that the size comes in, maybe it doesn't, maybe it goes out and you express it in an awesome way with great wrought iron supports or something else that makes it visually clear and work well, and maybe you show some great historic examples of doing just this. But I think you're taking on a tough challenge. So it's our job from the city's point of view to use our best tools and judgments to have a certain standard of very high quality level standard of things. And so it is a tough review process, but that's our job as well. And that's what the city depends on us for, and that's what we try to take very seriously and try to do it so that it's the best across the board. So that's any more thoughts, because I think we're going to be getting a motion. And
We can have 1 minute?
Sure.
You can confer? Let's just have a quick decide what we need to do here.
Okay.
Only because we have so much time today. And we have nowhere else to go.
You've already said you're interested. So we could be here all night, didn't you?
Can we get pizza?
Well, that's what we're hanging around.
That's
for.
right. We almost made it.
And that's
We
why
could
we-
drag this out. 1 hour and 35 minutes, guys. All right, so we're gonna go on recession, recess, I think. Yeah.
5 minutes.
Hopefully shorter. Landmarks Commission. All right. And did you-
Commissioner Grumbine, so we've requested PDA to return in 2 weeks with further study and refinement to the canopy.
Okay.
And I think on all other issues, we're in total agreement.
Okay, great.
That's by the temple.
Which one is this?
It's Hollywood, I believe, temple. Pavilion built against that classic building.
What a contrast.
All right.
Okay, let's.
So with that, back to the commission then for, who would like to make a motion? Is there anyone?
What is the
And we're gonna have-
motion for?
So it would be for project design approval. You're going to have to make the findings, with, I guess, the following comments. I'll give some comments to hold to. The commission would like to see for the landscape plan, the pots, for them not to be square and to be more Pueblo Viejo consistent, preferably round. Let's see, you got that. The lighting
Wilshire Boulevard.
so the lighting, wall wash and others to be continued for final and to be discussed and continued for final, but in general, the lighting plan looks good and supportable. Let's see, all those. The kitchen entry and wall look, we appreciate the additional design and adjustments, and they look proportionally acceptable. And the wall articulation looks acceptable as well. The tile in the openings has gone a step in the right direction, but we would also like it to we appreciate the applicant's color choice and the reasoning behind it, but it needs to be integrated in an even more El Pueblo Viejo type Spanish way, Spanish type of way. All right, so let's take the big one. The main entry design canopy and entry. We appreciate the additional studies that the applicant has done. This element is still in need of more refinement. It's a complexity of combining the columns, the arch, the tile work, and the metal awning need to be resolved better, and additional study and additional options need to be come up with. But it is acceptable for initial project design approval with more development and refinements for final. The Mission Gable parapet wall, one commissioner felt that it still needed more molding profile adjustments, but all commissioners felt the general size was acceptable of you doing a small molding above the Mission Gable and with a larger molding at the wall, the main walls, flanking walls. The glass doors and window muntins, one commissioner felt that there should be more horizontal muntins, at least 2 more horizontal muntins for both sets of doors and side lights. The other commissioners were okay with the drawings as proposed. And that was it for the summary comments. So those are the comments. And then it's for project design approval and final approval, or sorry, not final approval, for project design approval. And you also need to make the compatibility findings.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Could you go to the site plan?
Landscape plan, good?
Well, no, I want to see the back area. I need to understand where you are plastering in back and stopping the plaster. That's a good plan right there. You see that curved wall at the back recess?
Yes.
Where are you stopping your new plaster in that wall?
At the end of the wall of the courtyard screen wall?
You're not plastering the curve?
No.
Thank you.
So you're saying where there's a little tiny 90-degree back to the curved wall?
Well, I'm not sure how they're going to do it, but
We're going to cut in a reglet and,
yeah.
Okay.
As long as you weren't plastering that round.
no, that would be a problem.
And your drawings don't indicate a cornice on top of that wall.
No, right now, we're not doing much to that wall. We're leaving it as it is.
Okay.
It's just a coping, metal coping up
And as
there.
part of your interior work, are you putting new air conditioning in?
We might be putting some new units in to supplement some of the spaces that are weak in the system right now.
New rooftop equipment is the question.
Not that I'm aware of right now.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So, were you starting to make a motion, Commissioner Uli?
Yeah, I was moving that way.
Move to the motion.
I'll move the project design approval as requested, including the comments that you just outlined, with the following project compatibility findings: consistency with design guidelines. the project overall is consistent with our guidelines, except for that very lengthy argument we had about the entry, but we'll get that resolved. Compatibility with architectural character of the neighborhood, the building will become more compatible with its neighborhood than it is currently. It is of an appropriate size, bulk, scale, and height. I don't believe there are any resources. Is there a resource next door?
there's a-
Structure of merit next door? It doesn't seem to impact historic resources or.
Except for now with the
or-
jacaranda down.
Yeah.
We'll drive by.
There are no public views to be concerned about, and open space and landscaping seem to be appropriate for the project.
All right. So we've got a motion, and so we need a second.
I would second.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Butler. All right, motion and a second under discussion. Any discussion? All right, in that case, we'll have a roll call vote.
All right, thank you. I'll start with Commissioner Lenvik,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Manuel,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
and Chair Grumbine.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Thanks.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Or as soon as, let's see, in terms of that.
We didn't say, you want to, you can,
Continue.
they asked to continue for 2 weeks, which would be April 27th.
Okay, so
That's a
do-
very special day. It's U.S.'s Grant's birthday. Also happens to be my birthday, so.
I will,
Well, all right. So, wait, do we need it into the motion for them to actually
yeah,
come
we
back?
can, if we could add that to the motion.
Okay,
So
so
added.
make sure the motion's okay with it, seconder's okay with it, okay? And then do we need a revote then? That's for-
Yes,
for-
let's-
for-
let's
Just for
do
make
that.
sure, to cross our Ts and dot our Is. Yeah, let's hold on, let's, all right, we can do it verbally. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstain? All right, unanimous addition to it, just like the old days. And we even had paper plans like the old days. All right, thank you.
In the new.
That's remarkable.
It's the most beautiful.
Nice to meet you.
And then to see that thing put next to it,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Have you seen it? Have you been there to see
Yeah.
it?
You got a chain link, well, not chain, they have a big fence across the front of it because you know, the neighborhood it's in.
All right, first in-person meeting. And then we're gonna have, it's gonna be,
But it was so discouraging.
it's gonna
to
be,
me as an architect.
it's gonna be interesting. We're gonna have a conversation. We've had a pre-meeting. Yeah. Oh,
It must be traumatic.
officially adjourned.
I have not been.